Well, now let's move to one of our build-alongs with Daryl Jacobs, who owns Interaction Hobbies, that he's building one of his models on the show. So Daryl, welcome.
Hey guys, good evening. Glad I could be here. Glad you're all here. I'm just going to share my screen here, in theory.
We're glad you're glad, Gary.
And let's see, the technology is working. There we go. So this is the fourth and final chapter of Keeger's Garage and Repair. Tonight we're going to talk about window dressings, a little bit of detail about roofing, lighting, some exterior details, and finish up with the driveway deck. So this kit is very similar in both HO and O scale. The main difference with the O scale one primarily is the walls are doubled up, which we talked about previously. But other than that, the kit is basically the same and just scaled up a bit. So last time we talked about the front room, which has an partial interior detail. And thinking about the rest of the building, if you're going to have any LED or lighting in the back of the building, either you detail it yourself, put some interior detail in, or what I've chosen to do here is to simply put some blinds, and they were just cardstock in the window at a various level. And you can see here how how those blinds show up kind of in a random fashion. So it kind of gives some idea that something's happening inside the building. Same over the door. I just left the glazing covering on, and then I used a piece of tissue on the side windows and just curled it to make it look like a curtain on the side windows. So it adds just a little bit of life to the building and something simple to do before you go ahead and button up the inside. So the roofing, it's black craft paper that comes with the kit. The newer kits that we've released are pre-laser cut strips for you. The older kits are just a sheet of paper that you have to cut down to rolls of tar paper. I find the best way to go with tar paper roofing is to take the sheet and using a sponge, just kind of dapple some color onto it, typically a grays, 2 or 3 different grays, kind of do it and just kind of model it. And then when you slice up your strips, you kind of randomize them. So kind of mix them up a bit, don't put them in the same order. And it just adds more texture to the finish on the building. So a little trick here that I've learned recently, I think it was Jason Jensen, I'm going to credit to, but something I do with my tar paper roofing now is I place it on the edge of the desk or on the edge of my cutting board, and I just drag nail file up and down this way, back and forth across just the edge of it, kind of at a low angle. And you'll see over here the unfinished or the untrialed edge, and then you wind up just with some tears and things, and it kind of simulates that tar, but also simulates a bit of wear on the roofing as you go. So as long as you're dragging your file back and forth this way, you get a pretty good effect across the roof. Then you go ahead and take these strips and just overlap them lightly, gluing up the roof panels. Once you're done with those roof panels, what I do is to trim it, I hold my knife at a slight angle to the edge, just so I can get a little bit of overhang on the tar paper, and that way you can take your fingernail on the back of your fingernail and just burnish around the edges so that you get this fold over effect on the edge of the building. It's kind of a nice effect. Plus, I leave the top end a little bit long and fold that upwards so that you can. Because most times the tar is wrapped up against the back edge of the building, so it kind of adds a nice effect there. And I find doing this, you can get that nice tar effect without having to go back and paint ungodly seams, because every time I do it, at least it makes it look way over scale and oversized. So on the left here, we've just done some dry brushing, so just streaking some dry brushing back and forth on the panels. And then once again, after that's done, I just take that nail file, and just strake it up the roofing, and kind of gives it a nice worn effect. And the more dry brushing you do, the more it's going to fade and look like a faded roof, aged roof. So then a little bit about lighting. The kit includes an LED strip light and some wiring for the interior kit. It's just a very basic kit to do. You do need to do a little bit of soldering. Not going to go into the details here. I think that would be a great seminar, Jim. If somebody does a basic soldering seminar on the show, it would be fantastic. So, but basically, to start with, what I always recommend is a little bit of flux on the leads, these positive and negative leads on the sheet. These LED strips come in strips of 3 LEDs per panel. So usually it comes in a long roll, and you nip it off into every 3 LEDs. As long as you get the 3 LEDs and the resistor on it, it'll hook up to anything around 12 volts, 9 to 14 volts. So the first thing you do is put some flux on the positive and negative area, some flux on the wire leads that you've cut off as well. And that's the number one fail point I find, is people don't use flux. And then you got to overheat things, you start burning things, and it gets rather difficult. So just a little bit of flux, and just touch it with a bead of solder on the 2 leads on the LED. And same with the wire leads, pre-tin them by putting a little bit of solder on each lead that's been fluxed already. And then just hold it over the end of the LED and just touch it with a hot iron, and you'll find it'll flow instantly. So a little bit of practice makes that easy. The LEDs have a self-adhesive backing on them. I always recommend in the building to use a self-adhesive backing to set it in place, but then use some glue. Because inevitably the Chinese, even though it says it's 3M backing, sometimes it's not as good in long term, and it can peel up. So always set them in place, and then I glue them in place. So here you can see we line it up in that notch that we put in the roof in the earlier episode. Just glue that around, and you can see I put some glue all around the LED here to set it in place. Set that down. There's some pre-drilled or pre-laser cut holes in the bottom of the building to allow you to feed your feed lines through, and you just feed that through and install the roof panel. So the roof trim on the main part of the building is laser cut for you already, and because it's a fairly thin trim to match the original prototype. And on the garage section and the shed, there's scaled 2x8s that you use to set your trim on the building. So you just go ahead and put that roof on and put that trim on. Then you insert the castings for the chimney and the roof. The back stoop has a cantilevered laser cut overhang. So you just got to set those in. There's little notches on the laser cut part to tell you how far to inset them into the wall. So you just go ahead and glue those in place, and a little bit of glue in those 4 corners. Then there's a spreader that goes across the front of the stoop. And lastly, you put the roof on over top of the stoop. So the kit has, we supply some wire, some Tichy phosphorus bronze wire to bend up some gooseneck lamps. So you just simply bend those around the template that's provided, and trim them to size, and glue up your lampshades and put them in over top of the garage door opening and over top of the front of the building. And I think there's one in the back as well that you can install. So the canopy is optional in the building. It can either be rolled up or extended out. Here you have a picture of the O-scale one. It is another difference in the O-scale kit versus HO, where the awning is actually 2 layers. So in this case, the red layer here that you're seeing is overlapped over, so it's a laser cut piece. The red pieces are laser cut out, and you simply overlap that and lay it over top of the yellow underhanging one. So it adds kind of a nice 3D effect on the O-scale canopy. The HO one is just a single piece of paper that has to be cut out. But it's kind of nice to add these little flaps. You can kind of bend them in different positions to show it kind of flowing in the wind as it would in real life as well. And lastly, there's a little a deck that's out front in the O scale version. This deck is pre-laser cut, and in the HO scale version, you actually put it together with scale 2x4 or 4x8s, I should say, over top of a supplied platform. And it just kind of adds a nice detail. The original had a raised deck because it had a slope in the building, so that this deck was floating out and needed to be a planked deck for working on the vehicles. And you put it together, and then you just kind of finish off with a few signs in the windows and things, and there you have it. So that kind of completes the kit. As you say, you can go to our website and download the instructions. Even if you're not building the kit, there's a lot of good information in our instructions, so you can have at it and have a go at playing around there. So that's it. If there's any questions, please go ahead and ask, or we can put them in the chat, and I'll answer them as the show progresses. So back to you, Jim.
Anybody have any questions for Daryl?
Daryl, I was just wondering, how do you do the rolled up awning effect?
Well, the rolled up awning, I should say, that's this piece on it. Oh, I don't know if that's gonna, yeah, under here. So
We can't see it, Daryl.
Oh, you're not seeing the share screen here, or?
Yes.
Well, finished model is what we were seeing.
Oh, yeah. Basically, I don't have a picture of the rolled up version, but you just take about the area that has the little curved, I'll just stop sharing here so you can see me. You can see me waving my arms. So the front of that awning that has the little furled bottoms, you just take that and wrap it around a skewer or a toothpick to get a nice sharp edge. So you don't want to use the whole canopy. You just want to use the very last bit with those furls hanging down. And that'll give the scale effect of the canopy being rolled up. And you can take those same wires or wrap it around the wire, I should say, that's for the canopy awning support. I don't know if that made any sense to Alan.
Well, the reason I asked is what I'm doing with your kit. It's very important that one sees inside the windows, and that's all I'm going to say.
Right. Yeah. The other thing, if you notice on the, if you look at the building, the original building, it actually was a gas station, but the awning says confectionery on it. So the sign above it said gas station, the awning said confectionery. So, and I think Bill Davis in the O scale, I don't know which, if it's coming out this month or next month in O scale magazine, but he did a review of our kit there, and he did it as a confectionery. So it's kind of a different picture. Looking forward to seeing what you do with it.
Very much. I really do appreciate you doing this, and